I was 38 years old when I died in the vault, not when my heart stopped that came after. I mean the moment I understood that the air I was breathing, the water I was drinking, the walls that were supposed to keep me safe, they were all just different ways of dying slow enough that you wouldn't notice until it was too late to leave. I was 7 the first time I noticed the lights weren't the same color as sunlight. My father told me sunlight was yellow, warm, the kind of thing that made you squint. I never understood what he meant. The lights in the vault were white, steady, humming through the halls at all hours. They didn't change. They didn't warm anything. But they were all I knew, so I believed him when he said we were lucky to have them. The vault was supposed to be temporary. That's what the oldest residents said, the ones who remembered the doors closing. 20 years, maybe 30, then we'd go back up, reclaim the surface, rebuild. But 20 years became 40, and 40 became 60, and somewhere along the way, people stopped talking about the surface like it was a place we'd actually see. It became a story, a metaphor, a threat parents used when their children misbehaved. I grew up in C block, 3rd level down. My family had been assigned a quarters unit when they first entered 2 rooms, a shared bathroom, a kitchenette with a hot plate that worked most of the time. My mother kept it clean. She swept every morning and wiped down the walls twice a week, scrubbing at the same stains that never quite disappeared. The vault recycled its air, but it couldn't recycle away the smell of old sweat, old meals, old bodies living too close together for too long. By the time I turned 12, I'd memorized every inch of C block, the pattern of screws on the wall panels, the slight bow in the corridor floor near the commissary, the way sound carried differently depending on where you stood dead and flat near the ventilation shafts, tinny and echoing near the stairwells. I knew which pipes rattled when the water recycler kicked on at 0600 and which ones hissed quietly all day like they were trying to tell you something. I didn't think about it then, but the vault was always making noise, always humming, clicking, groaning. You learned not to hear it. If you stopped and listened, really listened, it sounded like the whole place was struggling to breathe. School was mandatory until 16. We sat in rows inside a converted storage room, learning math and reading and vault history from instructors who repeated the same lessons year after year. There were no new books. The library had been catalogued and locked down decades ago. Someone worried about wear and tear, about pages crumbling, about losing knowledge we might need later. So we read the same texts our parents had read, and our test scores went into files no one ever looked at again. The instructor for vault systems and maintenance was a man named Howell. He was thin in a way that looked painful, his wrists like wrapped wire, his face sunken around the eyes. He told us the vault was a miracle of engineering. He showed us diagrams of the water purification system, the air scrubbers, the geothermal power taps. He explained how every component was designed with redundancy, how the vault could sustain its population indefinitely as long as we followed protocol. I raised my hand once and asked how long indefinitely meant. He looked at me for a long time before answering. "As long as it needs to," he said. That was the year people started getting sick. It wasn't sudden, no outbreak, no plague, just a slow accumulation of problems that didn't have names. My mother's gums started bleeding when she brushed her teeth. My father developed a cough that wouldn't go away, dry and persistent, like something stuck in his chest. One of the younger kids in my block started losing hair in patches. Another stopped growing. The medical wing called it malnutrition, prescribed supplements from the dwindling supply, and sent people home with instructions to eat better. There wasn't better food to eat. The vault grew its own crops in hydroponic bays, algae, mushrooms, some kind of engineered protein paste that came out of vats in the processing wing. The taste was always the same. Metallic, vaguely sweet, coated in a film that stuck to your tongue. We ate it because there was nothing else. The ration packs from before the war were long gone, used up in the first decade. Everything we consumed now came from systems that had been running for 60 years without replacement parts. I started noticing things breaking. Small things, at first. A light panel that flickered and never got fixed. A bathroom sink that drained slower every week. A door that stuck and had to be shouldered open. Maintenance said they'd get to it. They always said they'd get to it. But the list of things waiting to be fixed kept growing, and the number of people who knew how to fix them kept shrinking. Howell died when I was 15. Heart attack, the medical wing said. He collapsed in the middle of a lecture about Kulan Sinquan systems and didn't wake up. They recycled his body the same day, standard protocol. No ceremonies, no graves. The vault didn't have space for sentiment. His replacement didn't know the systems as well. She read from manuals, stumbled over technical terms, admitted when she didn't understand something. The students stopped paying attention. What was the point? The vault would keep running, or it wouldn't. Knowing how it worked didn't change that. I turned 16 and aged out of school. The overseer's office assigned me to sanitation detail 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week, cleaning corridors and recycling human waste. It wasn't a choice. Everyone worked. The vault didn't produce anything that wasn't necessary, and it didn't keep anyone who couldn't contribute. You worked until you couldn't, and then you went to the medical wing and didn't come back. The waste recycling plant was on the lowest level, tucked behind the water treatment facility. It smelled the way you'd expect. The machinery was older than anyone alive, held together with improvised welds and scavenged components. My supervisor was a man named Carver, 60-something, his hands scarred from decades of repairs. He showed me how to clear blockages, how to bypass failing pumps, how to identify which leaks were critical and which ones you could ignore. Don't ever stop the system, he told me. Even for maintenance. You stop it, the whole vault backs up. People die. I asked him what we'd do when the parts finally ran out. He didn't answer. The work was repetitive, numbing. I shoveled and scraped and hosed down filters clogged with things I tried not to think about. The air was thick and wet, the kind that sat in your lungs and made you cough. I started losing weight. Everyone in sanitation did. Something about the environment, the exposure, the constant low-level toxicity. Medical said it was normal. They said a lot of things were normal. My mother died when I was 19. Internal bleeding, cause unknown. She'd been complaining of stomach pain for months, but the medical wing didn't have the equipment to diagnose it. They gave her painkillers until the supply ran out, then told her to rest and stay hydrated. She bled out in our quarters one morning while my father was at his shift. I found her when I came home, still and grey on the kitchen floor, her hands clutched around her middle. The vault recycled her the same day. My father didn't speak for weeks after. He went to his shift, came home, sat in the corner of our quarters, staring at the wall. His cough got worse. Medical said it was environmental, chronic exposure to particulates in the air filtration system where he worked. They said everyone who worked that wing developed it eventually. They didn't say what eventually meant. I started seeing him less. He took extra shifts, doubled up on maintenance rotations, anything to stay out of our quarters. I understood. The walls felt smaller without her, the silence louder. The vault started failing in ways you couldn't ignore anymore. One of the primary air scrubbers locked up, and it took maintenance 3 days to get it running again. The air turned sour, thick with CO2, and people started passing out in the corridors. 2 people died before the system came back online. The overseer made an announcement about conservation, about following ventilation protocols, about rationing activity to reduce oxygen consumption. We were supposed to breathe less. The hydroponic bays started failing around the same time. Something in the nutrient solution, a contamination medical couldn't identify. The algae stopped growing. The mushroom yields dropped by half. The protein vats started producing output that smelled rancid, but we ate it anyway because there was nothing else. People got sick, cramping, vomiting, fevers that lasted days. Medical called it a viral infection and rationed out antibiotics that didn't help. I started noticing bodies more often. Not deaths during crises, but quiet disappearances. People who went to medical and never came back. People who collapsed on shift and were recycled before anyone filed a report. The Vault didn't announce deaths anymore unless they affected critical operations. The population numbers stopped being posted outside the overseer's office. I didn't know how many of us were left. I was 23 when my father died. Lung failure, according to medical. His cough had turned wet, full of fluid he couldn't clear. He drowned slowly over the course of a week, lying in a medical wing cot while his chest rattled and heaved. I visited when my shifts allowed. He didn't recognize me near the end. Kept asking for my mother. Kept saying he needed to get home before she worried. I told him she was fine. I told him she was waiting. He died believing it. The Vault recycled him the same day. I requested a transfer after that, away from sanitation, away from the lower levels, away from the smell and the noise and the memory of watching systems fail while pretending everything was sustainable. They moved me to inventory management, cataloging supplies, tracking consumption, filing reports that no one read. It was quieter, cleaner, lonelier. The storage wings were half empty. Most of the pre-war supplies were gone, used up or rotted past usability. What remained sat in lockers gathering dust, relics of a world none of us remembered. I found things sometimes. Personal items people had brought when they entered the vault. Photographs, jewelry, children's toys. All of it abandoned, forgotten, irrelevant. I started reading the inventory logs from the early years. Detailed records of everything the vault had started with, everything it had consumed, everything it had produced. The numbers didn't balance. They never had. The vault was designed to sustain a specific population for a specific time frame, and we'd exceeded both decades ago. Every year, we consumed more than we could replace. Every year, the margins got thinner. We weren't surviving. We were running out slowly. I kept working because there was nothing else to do. The vault didn't stop. Shifts didn't end. People kept moving through corridors, kept eating meals, kept filing reports, kept pretending the system was functional. But you could feel it breaking. The walls were colder. The lights flickered more often. The air tasted stale even when the scrubbers were running. People stopped talking about the surface, stopped talking about rebuilding, stopped talking about anything except the day in front of them. I was 28 when the overseer sealed the vault permanently. No announcement, no vote. Just a memo distributed to department heads, filed in triplicate, stamped with the Vault-Tec seal. The external door mechanism had degraded past the point of safe operation. Attempting to open it would compromise structural integrity. For the safety and continued survival of all residents, the door would remain closed indefinitely. We were never leaving. I don't remember what I felt reading that memo. Relief, maybe. The kind that comes from having a question answered, even when the answer is the one you feared. At least we knew. At least we could stop pretending there was a world outside worth reaching. The vault didn't change after that. It kept running, kept recycling, kept demanding shifts and labor and compliance. But something shifted in the people, a resignation, a quietness. We'd been living inside a tomb, and now we knew it. Medical stopped treating non-critical cases. Not officially, there was no policy change, no directive, but the wing was always full. And the supplies were always short, and the staff were always tired. If you came in with something that wouldn't kill you immediately, they sent you home and told you to rest. If you came in with something that would kill you, they made you comfortable and waited. I started developing headaches, constant, low grade, sitting behind my eyes like pressure. Medical said it was stress. They said a lot of people were experiencing the same thing. They didn't have anything to treat it with, but they logged the symptom in my file and sent me back to work. The headaches got worse. I started losing time minutes, then hours, gone without memory. I'd be filing inventory reports, and suddenly it would be 3 hours later, the light outside the window dimmer, my hands cramped from writing. Medical said it was fatigue. They said I needed to sleep more, eat better, reduce my workload. I couldn't do any of those things. I was 31 when I noticed my gums bleeding, just a little when I brushed my teeth, then more. Then constantly, the taste of iron in my mouth all day. Medical said it was scurvy, vitamin C deficiency. They said the hydroponic output wasn't providing adequate nutrition anymore, that everyone was showing signs of malnutrition. They gave me a supplement packet, 3 pills, the last of the stockpile, and told me to make them last. I took one, saved the other 2. I don't know why. My teeth started loosening. I could feel them shift when I ate, the roots pulling free from gums that had stopped holding them. I stopped eating anything that required chewing. The protein paste was easier. I could swallow it without tasting, without feeling. I kept working. What else was there? The Vault population kept shrinking, not from any single event, just attrition. People dying quietly in their quarters, people collapsing on shift, people walking into recycling and not coming out. The overseer stopped updating the census. The commissary reduced rations. The work rotations got longer. I was 34 when the power started failing. Not all at once. Just sections, flickering out and staying dark for hours before stuttering back on. The geothermal taps were degrading, maintenance said. The reactor shielding was compromised. They were doing everything they could, but the systems were older than anyone alive, and we didn't have the parts to rebuild them. The vault got colder. The heating elements couldn't keep up without full power. People started wearing layers, bundling in blankets, huddling near the vents when the heat cycled on. Respiratory infections spread. Medical ran out of antibiotics. The coughing in the corridors became constant, a wet chorus that echoed through the recycled air. I stopped sleeping. Not intentionally, I just couldn't anymore. I'd lie on my cot staring at the ceiling, listening to the vault groan and hiss around me, feeling my heart beat too fast in my chest. My hands shook constantly. I couldn't hold a pen without the tremor making my writing illegible. Medical said it was anxiety. They said everyone was experiencing it. They didn't have anything to treat it with. I was 36 when I stopped going to my shift. No one noticed. Or if they did, they didn't care. The inventory wing was mostly empty anyway, and the records didn't matter anymore. We weren't tracking supplies for a future. We were just counting down what was left. I spent my days walking the corridors. The vault felt bigger when it was emptier. Whole sections were dark now, powered down to conserve energy. I walked through them with a hand on the wall, feeling my way past rooms I'd never entered, past quarters that had been sealed when their occupants died and no one came to claim the space. I found a body once, an old woman lying in a corridor on B block, her skin grey and waxy. She'd been there for days, maybe weeks. No one had moved her. No one had reported it. I stood there looking at her, trying to feel something horror, sadness, anything, but there was just numbness. I kept walking. The vault was dying, and we were dying with it. Not fighting, not screaming, just fading, one system failure at a time, one body at a time, until there was nothing left but metal and silence. I was 37 when I realized I was the only person left in C block. I didn't know when the others had gone, died, maybe. Moved to sections with working heat, I walked through the corridors and heard nothing. Saw no one. The lights were off in most of the quarters. The doors hung open, revealing rooms stripped of anything useful. I went back to my family's old unit. The door was stuck, swollen in the frame. I had to kick it 3 times before it opened. Inside, everything was exactly as I remembered. The same furniture. The same stains on the walls my mother had scrubbed at. The same hot plate that worked most of the time. Dust covered everything, thick enough to write in. I sat on the floor where I'd found my mother and tried to remember what her voice sounded like. I couldn't. The vault shuddered around me, a deep metallic groan that rattled through the walls. The lights flickered, went out, came back dimmer. Somewhere below, a pump screamed and went silent. I closed my eyes and listened to the vault die. I don't know how long I've been sitting here. Hours, days, it doesn't matter. There's nowhere to go. No shifts to work, no people to see, just me and the vault, failing together. My teeth are gone now, most of them. The last few are loose enough that I could pull them out if I wanted. I don't. It doesn't hurt anymore. Nothing hurts. I'm too tired to hurt. The bleeding hasn't stopped. My gums, my nose, the corners of my mouth, I can taste it constantly, thick and warm. I've stopped wiping it away. The lights go out for longer periods now. Sometimes I sit in the dark and count my heartbeats, feeling them slow, feeling the spaces between them stretch. I wonder if this is what my father felt. If my mother knew it was ending. If they were afraid. I'm not afraid. The vault promised safety. It promised survival. It delivered exactly what it was designed for, a sealed box where we could live until we couldn't anymore. No monsters, no raiders, no radiation. Just time, and the slow failure of systems that were never meant to last this long. I think about the surface sometimes. Try to imagine sunlight, yellow and warm, the kind that makes you squint. I still don't know what it looks like. I don't think I ever will. The vault groans again, deeper this time. Metal bending, seals failing. I can hear water somewhere, a hiss and drip that's getting louder. I lean back against the wall and close my eyes. The vault was supposed to protect us. It did.